Welcome, strangers, to this edition of Talkumentary INSIDER. This is a little bonus feature for our normal show where we have the opportunity to sit down with some of the people involved in the documentaries we cover on Talkumentary. I'm here with one of our illustrious co-hosts, Sister Lauren. What's up, sister?
What's up, bro?
What's up, bro? Bruh. Gross.
I hate it.
Bruh. So this week we covered the documentary called Dream Killer.
Yeah.
Dream/killer.
Yeah.
Dream.
We're gonna get to the bottom of this.
Dream Killet.
Killier.
We that was just you and I. Everyone else canceled out on that one, so it was just you and me. It was actually kind of fun because then we just got to bullshit and talk about a insane court case. Yeah. That was a documentary from 2015 that was about a wrongful conviction of a young man for his alleged role in a murder case, all based on the testimony of another young man who dreamed they were both involved in this murder, even though they were not. So kind of insane. If you have not seen this film yet, make sure you go out and check it out. We watched it on iTunes. Then you can go listen to our main show, and then you can come back and listen to this. So tonight, though, we have a very special guest with us over the airwaves. He is known for works such as The Zen of Bobby V, World of Jenks, It's About a Girl, Posterized, I believe. Posterized. It's Not Over, All American Family, Andrew Jenks, Room 335. But we are here to talk to him about the film he directed and produced in 2015 called Dream Killer. His Wikipedia calls him the Mighty Jank. He is a...
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
I love it.
Someone sent that to me. I think it might be Alex, one of my cousins, who's fucking. I've never heard that before. So.
I think it's awesome. But anyway, Andrew Jenks, welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. I was actually introduced to your work by one of my lifelong best friends and the producer of this show, DJ. We grew up next door to him, Lauren and I. That's how we know him.
Well, that's fine.
We've known him since he was
since we were little booger eating shitheads.
Yeah,
but he still is, though. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that. So you guys work together? He does video stuff and all that. You guys work together. How do you know DJ? Do you know him like well, or is it just kind of you guys work together once?
No, this is going to sound tremendously more suspect and shady and kind of like interesting than it actually is. Okay. I hadn't thought of it like you asking this, albeit it makes perfect sense. I can't tell you professionally how I know DJ.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because it's I know him through a project that we were filming in a place and none of it has been released yet. Okay. So I'm always on the air of like, I can probably wiggle some sort of, but like, it saves everyone's time from, but if things work out, I will one day come back on this show.
Yes.
And it will be a pretty, it's not what you would expect in a cool way.
Okay, awesome. I love that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so but he told me about Dream Killer, and as soon as I heard about what Dream Killer, just the premise of it, I was like, okay, shit, this is something we have to do for our show because this sounds awesome. This unbelievable story about a person being convinced, a person being convinced that they themselves was involved in a murder that they weren't. Mm-hmm. And also bringing someone else and somehow the conviction going through. There was not a minute in that documentary that you put out that I wasn't glued to the edge of my seat going, how the hell is this being, is this happening in this way? Mm-hmm. We kept looking at each other going, it gets worse from here. It's insane. But, since I got you here, I'd like to know how you got involved in that story at all. So the original, conviction, or the arrest, I should say, was back in like 2001, which I don't know for a fact how old you are, but I think you're somewhere around my age. And So that means you were probably in high school or something when the original things were going on. So it's not like you were following it necessarily from the beginning, but how did you get involved in this crazy story?
So I was pitching a documentary idea to this guy that I've become good friends with named Chip Rosenblum. And I was pitching him an idea, as I recall, about a journalist named Dylan Radigan. And it was a documentary concept. Chip has financed some like amazing movies through the years. He's written his own. And I was pitching him this idea, and he said no. He passed on it. He did say there's a guy who's in prison from Missouri, where Chip is from, and this guy's name is Ryan, and I feel like he's in prison for a murder he didn't commit. You should look him up, and if you're interested, maybe I'd finance a documentary about that.
Huh.
Wow.
And that's how that started. Was my then spending, I think, quite a bit of time understanding the case, reading about the case, obviously, eventually reaching out to Ryan, or telling his parents to have him call me if he was up for it. We developed a relationship. I said a friendship at one point, and he was. We can get into that later, yeah. But although we're certainly good friends now, we actually it's his bachelor party next weekend in Vegas.
Oh my God! Awesome! Congrats, Ryan.
Yeah. So we probably started talking. I don't know exactly 5-6 years into his sentence. He eventually got out after 9.5 years. And we would talk to, I don't know, 2 times a week sometimes, or I don't know, maybe, I don't know exactly, but developed a kind of bond that way. I went once or twice, filmed him in prison, that sort of thing. We'd put out YouTube videos.
Wow.
So that's how I first heard about the case.
Yeah. So you kind of got in at sort of the ground when he was still imprisoned. He was still going through. He hadn't even had like his cases or his trials yet. He was still going through all of that shit, trying to get himself, in front of the right judge, in front of the right jury, with the right, attorneys and everything. So it was so in real time, we were seeing through that documentary, and you were experiencing what he was experiencing. Is that fairly accurate?
The neat thing about that I was lucky enough to kind of walk into was that so much of the story, whether because we were there or seemingly sheer luck, had been captured and filmed. So by that I mean the moment that Ryan was arrested and put in that cop car, there was the camera. That's in the. From there, he goes into the interrogation room. That's all filmed. Then the trial starts. CBS is interested in this case, so it's not just filmed with cameras in the it's actual proper cameras that really capture that court case, and it goes all the way until the end, where we were able through certain means to get the moment that Ryan, for the first time in nearly 10 years, was unshackled and able to properly hug his mom and dad. Like the access, which is, the name of the game in so many ways, I'm endlessly grateful for, because it wasn't just the fact that we were there, maybe, I honestly should know this, but a couple of years or maybe a little bit more before he got out. It had also been documented in certain ways.
Right. And and to be fair, this all, the film came out, 9 years ago or something like that. So a lot of your prep work was even longer ago than that. So I know you had told me in an email, I haven't really thought a whole lot about the film, the filmmaking process, and quite obviously you've got other stuff going on. But that's really cool. And it's incredible that, like you said, the timing of everything is kind of key to telling this story, because we didn't, we get to see the original arrest in those videos. We get to see the the what do you call it? The interrogations. We get to see what's going on in the court, which is crazy to me because maybe this is just showing some of my naivete, but like I thought that you couldn't like record in courtrooms when that stuff was happening. I thought that's why you got courtroom drawings and things like that, but maybe I'm just wrong. I don't.
Exactly. That's right. So it depends on, I think a judge can ultimately decide whether or not it's filmed, but that should be certainly fact checked. Like maybe it's a state thing or a county thing or the type of crime. I don't know, but either way, we did have like not just the footage, but like proper guys and who do this sort of thing that are able to film courtroom cases in a
right,
in a solid way,
right, in a way that you can use in a documentary, and it doesn't all feel like just complete. It's not like a surveillance camera or whatever. Right. It gives you a lot more to choose from. So you got involved with Ryan Ferguson's story. So you got to know, I'm assuming, his parents pretty well. What about Bill Ferguson? So he, in my opinion, and I think when we talked about it, Bill Ferguson is the hero of this story. The person who kind of relentlessly went after the overturning of his son's conviction. Is he as powerful and as inspiring as a character in person during real time as you portrayed him as in this film? Because when we're watching it, I wanted to get a I'm with Bill Ferguson's, or I wish my dad was a Bill Ferguson t-shirt. Speak to me about him.
Yeah, Jeff, that's spot on.
Yeah.
Like I'm so like that made my day what you just said about him, because that is who he is. And so it gives me literal chills to think about like you have the opportunity to film a guy like that, and I didn't know that going into it. Like, he's, certainly he was like a dedicated, obsessed, and I don't mean that in a bad way, dad over the case. I can't seriously talk about the making of this movie without, we had an editor who has since passed, unfortunately, named Sam Lee, and Sam is the best editor I've been lucky enough to like ever work with, hands down, not even close. And she really shaped this movie in the way that you are able to hopefully enjoy it, take something from it. And one of the best examples of that is when looking at the footage and thinking like, wait a second, we've always thought of this as the Ryan Ferguson movie. Actually, it's the Bill Ferguson movie.
Absolutely.
And so like, the whole kind of approach to the film was completely changed by a really good editor. And so, when you say that, Jeff, that's like great to hear, because
it worked.
You said it. He's the hero, and it just so happens that didn't. It just required someone with Sam's kind of talent to
portray that.
Like figure that out, because that's not what you think going into it. You're like, well, Ryan's the guy. Right. He's the star. He's good-looking 27-year-old also.
Right, but if it were just left to Ryan Ferguson, there's a good chance that because he was incarcerated at the time, he'd still be sitting behind bars.
Exactly.
And
no. There's not a good. There's no.
Right.
I mean,
it would have without Bill being out there on the streets and doing what he did and putting up the billboards and making the car rap and doing the just pushing and
found eyewitnesses though. Forget not just like the advocacy stuff. He actually changed the case.
Yeah, he was like feet on the ground doing the police's work.
Yeah. Like, hold on. So you told me that they never asked you. You told them that wasn't him,
right.
and he he never brought
that
up.
Memory.
Well, now we're getting into a lawyer, a prosecutor who is leaving stuff out willingly. Well, that changes everything in this case, and so
that's right.
To
violation.
Right. Right. So anyway, and I have got a lot of things I could say about
Mr. Crane,
the honorary Mr. Crane. But maybe we won't get into that.
Maybe Missouri should not allow cameras in their courtroom, because I think I wouldn't have hated him as much if I hadn't seen him in action. Right.
Well, then everything should be on video, if you ask me.
No, I totally.
No, the last thing I'll say about an editor is like, just because when I think of this movie in terms of how it was made, I don't know if I've ever worked on a project where the editor makes that level of difference. And there's this line, I want to say Philip Seymour Hoffman said it, but that doesn't, I don't know. But it's that with documentaries in particular, if the editor is kind of like the chef, a great chef. And so like, if you give an amazing chef terrible food, they might still be able to make a great meal. And you give a chef who has awesome food, but they're a bad fucking chef.
It ruins it.
And that's an editor in documentaries. Yeah. You could give someone gold and they could fuck it up. Other way around too. Yeah. So I've always, thought about that with editing.
No, I love that. And, we actually did an episode of Insider with a guy named Jeff Fierzig. He did a documentary we covered called The Devil and Daniel Johnston. And I had a similar conversation with him about, how much of this is written for you, just by the story being told. You guys were presented with the opportunity to see in real time how this thing unfolds. And, it's a compelling story in and of itself. But like you said, it takes the editing, it takes the filmmaking as a whole to show that in a way that keeps Lauren and I glued to our seats, but at the same time, Jeff Fierzig's comment was, but it's all about story. It, like you said, a great chef can make a decent meal with shitty ingredients. Yeah. But if you've got anything more than a decent chef and quality ingredients, that's where your money is. Find the quality ingredients, get a group of chefs to work on that, and you just made yourself a killer meal. So, I love that. And that's the thing about documentaries, I think that's really, through the run of our show, that's really kind of gotten to me, is how much of the really, really compelling ones are because of somebody like yourself, Andrew, being not to take anything away from the work that you do to put yourself out there and find these things, but somebody having the right ingredients at the right time for the right audience and being with the right team to put it all together, and I don't know if you have anything to speak to that, but that's, it's crazy how much of that has to be kind of organic.
Like the stars have to align for that to happen.
I completely agree. And one thing that's fairly in the vein of what you're saying is, I had this producer that I worked with, and she was super smart, and she said, we'd been working on a project, it wasn't going great. And she said, you know what we're missing? We're missing those moments where an audience would be watching and they'd be like, holy shit, I can't believe the camera was there when that happened. And it's Jeff, it's kind of a little bit of that, maybe the word's luck, whatever it is, maybe hard work, effort, persistence will also help create that kind of like luck. But we hadn't had that. And I thought that was such a like tangible way of being like, yes, you're right. We do not have that.
And once we find that, that's what's going to maybe put us over where what's something that we're missing right now. And, luck in those, sure, that's something, but you're much, for example, you're not going to hit the Powerball if you never play the Powerball.
Right.
So the more you play into the Powerball, the more your chances go up to win that jackpot. Well, if you, Andrew, and your team are out there looking for stuff and digging through things and looking through the files and watching the footage and talking to the people involved, all of a sudden you're opening yourself up to be in the right place at the right time. Whereas if you're just sitting there going, well, as soon as my agent finds me the right thing, well, no, like that's not really how, I don't think, how a documentary works. You're here to find
I imagine the only other thing would be if you're a really, I'm kind of just brainstorming, but if you were a really brilliant director and or editor in documentaries, are you able to still create or edit moments where you actually weren't there in that moment, but you somehow have the ability to manipulate, again, not in a bad way, the footage to make it feel like that. That's an interesting, that could be another way of thinking.
Right. depending on, you have the after the fact, but can you still get the same effect?
It's all about the perspective, like, because us watching, we don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's that's why I ask you. We talked upstairs a little bit, like pre-recording, where where we, and you've already answered this, but where we said I'd love to know at what point did Andrew get into this story. That's the fact that it seemed like you and your crew were part of the story from the time he was arrested in 2001 to now. That should be a compliment to you and your team for making us even wonder about that, because we were invested in it the whole time, and we didn't feel like, oh, well, there's all the historical footage, and here's all the...
There's not like a point where you can tell when you guys actually came in, which is a
no, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. And again, it's also a little bit of luck because it had been... No, that's interesting. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to hear it.
No, it's all good. So, a lot of times when we watch documentaries, not everybody gets the resolution of their film, in the time that they decide to put it out, and we may get a real compelling story. You may have a filmmaker that goes and he finds this really cool story. He or she, they find this really cool story. They go out and they create this narrative, and then, it stops. That person's still sitting in jail, or there's hasn't been any resolution. And I know, like, for example, I don't know, one of the films we did was called The Amazing Jonathan. And by the end of the film, he's talking to the filmmaker going, I know it would make a compelling story for you if I died and you're waiting for me to die, but that hasn't happened here. And, so it's like, as the filmmaker, you're going, shit, I am just sitting here waiting for him to die because that would wrap up my story. Like, that's fucked up. You know what I mean? But you got fortunate enough, and I suppose, I don't know how many years you worked on that, but we were lucky enough, I get to see kind of a conclusion to this, although we didn't see
Chuck getting out.
Erickson, yep. We didn't see him get out because that didn't happen until 2003, right?
Very recently.
Yeah. 2023.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 2023. We went back in time? 2023, right. So we're seeing a lot of the real-time conversations. Were you in the vicinity? Were you at the camera when Bill and Leslie Ferguson got the call from
Kathleen Zellner?
Yeah, Zellner, about Ryan's release? Like, how did you hear that information?
So I was with them the day that he got out, driving around in their car, me, him,
that's so cool.
His girlfriend at the time, and Leslie and Bill. Right. And we were driving around. There was confusion as to where he was getting out. They said different things. It was a total, frenzy. Sure. The moment that they got the call, I think 48 hours, and this amazing journalist, Aaron Moriarty, had been following this case for a while. Okay. And that was footage that they hadn't maybe there was a portion of it they used. Sure. And Aaron and CBS, who were very nice to us, and I was like, do you mind if I watch just the raw tape? Right. Because obviously 48 hours is sort of like much. And they were like super cool. That's how I think that footage was found.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you had kind of cultivated a relationship with the family throughout this process. Can you tell me how you heard the information, how you heard that the news that he got out, that he, because we find out in the documentary that it's not like, a lot of times you hear like, hey, they're talking about it, he's going to be out within the next 2 years or whatever. He basically, from what it sounded like, was told, nope, we're throwing this out right now. Let that man out of jail, out of prison. And so you get that word. How are you feeling? How do you receive that? Do you remember the time when you heard that, and like, what was that like for you?
Ryan is unique. Ryan and I always got along outside of just kind of my following and capturing his story. We had very like similar interests and kind of outlooks on things. And so we've become really good friends. And so in a very kind of, I hate this fucking word, but like organic way. And he's like buddies with all me and my high school buddies. Like we've gone on summer vacations together, the whole thing. Certainly, like, of course, remember when we heard he was getting out, we had a strong inclination that it was going to happen at a certain day and more or less time. But we had also thought that many times. Certainly, Ryan had thought that many times before. So no one's hopes were actually that high. But it was definitely a known thing. It was likely, happening. But of course, they created an absolute mess and melee for the Ferguson family until the very end, where the cops and government were no, I shouldn't say the cops. I take that back. The government were giving the family different instructions as to where Ryan was being let out and how it was going to be done. And it seemed very intentional, and they did it on anyway. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. And, to us, as we were discussing this documentary and this situation, I guess, a big part of the frustration of this is how clear it is that a system is covering itself. It's watching its own back. It doesn't want to overturn things. It doesn't want, because if we start going back on what our people and our systems and our, attorneys and our judges and whatever it may be, if we start going, and looking at those and overturning them or second guessing them, then we may be opening a giant can of worms, and we also may be ruining our own reputations in the process, which, could get people in trouble and all that. And we don't want that, because we're, we want to make sure we look out for each other. Well, that's not justice. That's not, that's not truth. That's us watching out for ourselves, or them watching out for themselves. And, so I got to imagine that is one of the most frustrating things. And to find out that he's getting, I'm jumping out of my seat when I see that on the film. So I can only imagine what they, everyone that was involved and gotten close to must have felt like in that time.
What I'll say about that in terms of Ryan Ferguson is like, I also look up to him in a lot of ways. They never had he or his father or family ever had any sense of self-pity. They never were like, why us? Why are we of all people being forced to live with like a nightmare? And so they just are very kind of like stand-up, admirable humans. Right. And that's the other thing about Ryan, and how he's been able to like kind of take on everything.
Yeah, and we even saw in the film, when he's up against Kevin Crane in those trials, there's a specific spot that it just shows the cool, collected demeanor of Ryan, where he's being asked by Crane, like, or no, I'm sorry, Ryan says something like, well, I didn't really think it was that big of a deal because I didn't do anything wrong. And he's like, how would you feel if you were said you committed a crime? And Crane goes, well, yes. I didn't do anything wrong. And Ryan goes, well, neither did I. And he just said it so cool. Yeah. He just said it so collected. He didn't stand up and scream.
That's right. Good point. Everyone starts clapping. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. And Lauren and I were even saying, like, how are you not jumping over, when Crane
that made my blood boil.
Right. And when Crane's saying, like, you called Erickson an odd guy. Is that true? And then
he laughs.
He chuckles a little, and he's like, "Is that funny? Is that funny to you? I just thought you were. It's America. You could say it. Was that funny to you that he? It's like, dude."
The attempted the attempted manipulation and like mind games were so elementary that the fact he's already a seemingly, corrupt and immoral guy, it added to like the fucking frustration you have when watching him.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like this story has had an impact on me, and I'm on the outside looking in. Yeah. Is there
You know what I would say, Jeff, though, really quickly, sure. as I kind of said that. That said, I'd love to hear his side of things.
Absolutely.
Kevin Crane, like he's obviously been offered that many times and hasn't taken it up until the kind of some of the narrative and facts changed. But I bet Ryan would agree with that. Yeah. Like tell us what we're missing. Like right. I don't want to not like someone.
Yeah, and there's a bias there, whether or not and that's mostly because you're not getting the other person's story, the other side of the story. You're only getting kind of one side, and that's not because you didn't ask for it. It's just because it hasn't been given, it hasn't been offered, and all that.
Except Jeff, for the moment that matters more than anything, which is the court case. We got objectively both of their sides. Sure. That no interview or anything like that to me was like, the Coliseum. Like that was it.
What I'm wondering is, and this might not even be where I was at because I did lose my train of thought just a little bit, but is there a time during the making of this film that you consider to have had the most impact on you? Because I feel like I was impacted by this story, and whether it's just another story that we know, lawyer up, if nothing else, lawyer up, or if it can happen to these guys, it can happen to anybody. Whatever it may be, is there something in this that stands out to you as being probably the most lasting impact on you? And it's okay if you don't have like a single answer here or anything like that.
No, I have a couple. Okay. I mean, one would be that Kathleen Zellner, who saved Ryan's life essentially, and is a god in her world in many ways. I was talking to her about how I was just shocked at how it's not that hard to manipulate the judicial system, which is a longer maybe conversation, and maybe I'm not even equipped to say that sort of thing. Right. It's probably someone smarter to get into it. But what I'm trying to get at is that Kathleen Zellner said to me, listen, I could frame Mother Teresa if I wanted to.
Damn.
And it's just like, that's what I learned more than anything is if two people have an agenda, they can say that unsolved, that's what happened. That unsolved murder over there. That was this guy. Okay. Done. Like, I think that to me is one thing. Yeah. The other thing that I'd say, which is bigger than maybe even that, was Ryan and Bill's kind of approach to the whole case, which we've pretty much talked about, but with Bill specifically, he was always just about the facts, which is funny because in the end, the movie is kind of a father hero story, but he always avoided that kind of narrative. For him, it was like, yeah, Andrew, you want to ask me about how I'm feeling and my emotions and he's like, he didn't want to talk about that. He was like, so what Ryan was doing on the night this happened, the court case, like he was relentless and stubborn when it came to like, I get you have your approach, but the only thing I'm interested in talking about are what the facts are of the case. Yeah. And
the facts.
It was pretty impressive.
Let's get to the facts because that's what's going to get my son out of prison, not me feeling shitty about it. That's not going to do anything. If anything, probably from where a father's sitting, those feelings, those emotions are going to water down this narrative. If anyone's watching it, if anybody sees it, if I start getting into, if I talk to someone if I talk to a judge or a Kevin Crane or a Kathleen Zellner or anything like that, the people that are here to determine my son's fate, if I even talk about what I feel about it, all that's going to do is turn on their radar or whatever alarms bells saying, okay, we're getting away from this. This is getting too diluted, and whatever. His focus, sounds like he was laser focused on saying, nope. Like the facts here are that there's no facts. There's no evidence. I'm sorry, not no facts, but no evidence against my son putting him where because he wasn't there. And to me, I agree with you. That is a huge inspiration.
Yeah, let's talk about how I feel after this is all wrapped up, after I get my son out of prison.
Yeah. And I that was one of my favorite lines, I think, in the film was when he went outside and the press was kind of there to talk to him, and he goes, let me go get my son. Excuse me while I go get my son.
Yeah, and the only reason I remember that when I haven't seen this in 6 or 7 years probably is that I thought, and I was probably wrong, that should have been the title of the movie. Oh. Excuse me while I go get my son. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I can cut you off and be like, it's excuse me. I remember. Yeah. I remember I was trying to build a case for that.
How did you come up with the name for it? How did you guys land on that?
I think if I remember correctly, Dream Killer for kind of obvious reasons. Sure. Kind of a, it's short. It's pithy. Mm-hmm. It very much speaks to the core of what the question is. To me, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's intriguing to me. I'm kind of like, okay, what's this about? Especially for a documentary, mm-hmm. Like documentaries sometimes have it's changed, but sometimes it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to listen to like a textbook or something that I'm learning about. Mm-hmm. And Dream Killer sounds like a horror mm-hmm. film or something. Yeah. And I kind of like that sort of play on things. And I think that's why we went the extra / maybe ridiculous step of putting in the
slash,
the slash there. Mm-hmm. But I'm all for mixing it up. So we had this great producer on the film named Brendan Crane, who was great. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was his idea, but I remember he was making the case for it. And I'm all for it. Cool. I was skeptical at first.
We had a conversation on our show on what the correct pronunciation. Like, do you say the slash? Is it just Dream Killer? Right. Dream / killer. And then if you're looking it up,
I like clarity in life, and it does not provide that, which was one of my hesitations.
Right. Yeah. No, and then we went into calling it
Dream Killier.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So let's see.
So silly.
I was going to ask you a little bit about your what kind of contact you still have with Ryan, but of course it's sounds like you're pretty close to him still, which is awesome. What about Chuck? Do you have any communication with him? Was he a part of your story at all in this?
Yeah, two things. I mean, one, I kind of forget, but after Ryan got out, we actually created an MTV show called Unlocking the Truth. Right. Ryan and I EP'd it along with some other great people, and Ryan also co-hosted it. And Ryan and his co-host actually found, I think, I know they found evidence that helped contribute in its own way to the release of this guy out of Carolina, mm-hmm. really amazing guy. And so he had been wrongfully incarcerated for like 20 years. Jeez. And in terms of Chuck, he's certainly reached out to me through the years. I was always very grateful that he let us go and interview him. He definitely didn't have to do that. It might have been a risk to his case. I don't recall, but he did. I feel like we always, and in some ways maybe learned from Ryan, treated Chuck with a lot of respect and absolutely zero judgments, mm-hmm. and just tried to, again, take a page from Bill almost and just follow what were the facts of the case. We're not here to
bash somebody. The funny thing, or not funny, but the interesting thing about all that and about watching this and talking to you about what the Fergusons are like. So you've got Chuck Erickson, who could very easily fall into the realm of, this is our villain. Mm-hmm. This is the person who erroneously made a claim based on a dream that he had, that he's somehow connected to a murder case that happened, and because of all that, my opinion is, because of all of this, we still don't know who killed
Keith, right?
That's right. Keith. We still don't know.
Yeah. Sorry. Is it Keith?
It's Keith, right? Keith.
What? Oh, Heidel. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's probably because the law enforcement thought they already had the right people. I don't know. That's all speculation, of course. But, someone who could very easily be the villain, I could see myself holding a lot of resentment mm-hmm. towards Erickson if I were a Ferguson.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're not in that business. No, and they're like, that's wasted energy.
And that's so respectful or respectable. And I wish I knew about myself, whether I had it in me to treat someone in that way, but I don't, because I've never been in this situation.
Yep, exactly.
And I think Lauren even said,
very well put.
I think Lauren even said in our episode that, because I asked the question, like, how do you think you would respond if it was your family? And I think she even said, well, I sure hope that I could come anywhere close to a Bill Ferguson.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
You know,
that's right.
It's very respectable. And, you know, so I think it's really cool that they haven't villainized him, even though it would be really easy to do.
Very easy to do.
Okay, so I've got a couple more questions if you've got a little bit more time. Sure. Okay, we're gonna come a little bit away from the documentary list. So you've been involved in a whole bunch of very different types of films and TV series. So Andrew Jenks, Room 335, about you moving into a senior living facility back when you were 19, which is crazy. The Zen of Bobby V, which is a baseball film in Japan. A TV series called World of Jenks, where you move in with strangers. Is that? Yeah. And then It's Not Over, looks at the HIV AIDS epidemic through the eyes of millennials. All American Family, about a deaf football team. Unlocking the Truth, which is what you talked about, the MTV show involving Ryan Ferguson, all that, and a couple other things. So first, we know you like to move in with strangers. So there's at least two things in there where you go live with people you don't know. And second, you put out and you pull off a lot of really cool things. Do you just have a wide array of interests? You know, I don't see a lot of filmmakers that stray that, you know, you've got sports, you've got true crime, you've got, you know, those are kind of, I suppose, you've got HIV AIDS epidemic. And then, you know,
kind of a reality.
Yeah, sort of a reality show kind of thing. You know, where's that come from? Is it just a wide array of interests, or do you have like a favorite? Do you have something that you feel like's more rewarding than others, or can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, there's been podcasts, there's been documentary shows, and then documentaries. Some of them I'm in, some of them I'm not. There's been like what you're saying makes total sense. And I think sometimes it's a little bit, it might be to my career a little bit of a detriment, because people like people that are very good at doing, you know, a certain genre quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think I don't know why that is. It's why it's kind of gone that way. I think that's a good question. I think that I really like telling the stories of like overlooked, misunderstood people. Sounds really cheesy, but it's like if HBO will pay for my movie where I went and lived in a nursing home, like that, like to me, if MTV will give me a bunch of money to like live with a homeless girl in one episode, a kid with autism for a year, like, so I think I kind of like might really enjoy those stories, and whoever wants to pay me and allow me to tell them in some sort of form, I'm down to like try and finagle a way to like make that work in a way that I like. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Sure. And, you know, I feel like, you know, Lauren and I've known her for a long time, my whole life. So, Lauren, I can speak to her.
40-ish years.
Yeah. I resonate with that because we have tried and done a lot of different things in our lives. And, you know, we talk about podcasts to make or shows to make or things to do. And it's like, well, we could do something about documentaries, or we could do something about talking to our mother, or we could do something about watching movies, or we could do something, you know, all over the place.
Yeah, it's like a potpourri.
Right. A potpourri.
A potpourri.
You know, but I like that. So you said it could be a detriment to your career. To me, I say, you know, I hope that's not the case, because when I look at your body of work, I go, this is fucking cool, because you've got so many different things all told in, you know, your style and your kind of your way, you know, but to me, I think that's a good thing. That shows diversity. That shows that you're not a one-trick pony. And do you have something that you find, like a style that you find more like pleasurable than others, or more rewarding, or is it just kind of, you know, depends on what's going on?
So no, listen, I appreciate that. Right now with this, it changes a lot. So there's at different times, I'm kind of like a couple of years ago for what I was fascinated by, like how to do really good interview shots. And it was partly because I was on a show and one of the EPs of the show was like, kind of called me out for very unimpressive interview shots. And I realized most of what I've done is verite and kind of following people in real time. I'm not a big like sit down and interview you kind of guy. And so I got really into like figuring out, how to do that better. And but I think I'm much more interested, at least today, back in like that verite, following someone in real time, seeing what happens. Because to me, it's like you're directing a film, but it's live and you can't, it's live directing, if
you do the best with it coming at you in real time.
Yeah. If someone cries and you miss the shot, or someone punches someone, you miss the shot. If someone, what are you going to go interview them after? And that's not,
hey, can you hit that guy again? I missed it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a really hard-hitting question for you. I kind of feel like I'm going a little TMZ here. This is going to make headlines, I'm sure.
For sure.
I'm going to take a risk and ask this to you anyway. Sure. How does it feel to have been named number 19 on IMDb's 100 most handsome actors and directors?
I can't imagine a few things. One, I definitely have never heard that one.
Okay, good.
Good.
But this leads me to part two. Are you making that up? 3.
I can send you the list, man. It's just like a user list, but hey, you know what?
Is it an old list or something?
Yeah, it's like I think
maybe when I was on MTV or something. Yeah,
I don't know. But here's the thing, man. You beat out the likes of Ewan McGregor, Chris Evans.
Email this to me. I will. ASAP.
I will. I promise you. You beat out Chris Hemsworth.
This is great news.
You beat out Charlie Hunnam. You beat out Channing Tatum. You're number 19 out of 100, man. You are a good-looking fella.
I do not. This is news to me.
Okay. So what are you working on now? Anything you can talk about or want to plug that's coming up? Obviously, I know that you mentioned earlier the stuff. There's some things that you can't. So if you accidentally say something that you need cut out, you let me know. But
no. It's all good. There is one project I'm working on now that it's not like it's some huge mysterious thing, but I definitely can't mention. The thing that I just did that came out recently is called $1 Billion Babies.
Yes, this is what I want to talk about.
The true story of the Cabbage Patch Kids. It's a documentary. It's what it sounds like. It's about the Cabbage Patch Kids, the 1980s, doll phenomena, and there's a lot of kind of layers and stories behind it that I certainly didn't realize. And that is out. It was out in theaters limited theatrically in November and December. I don't know if it's still out now, but I imagine it'll be out in streaming at some point.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Lauren, you had questions about that.
No, I just wanted to talk about it because I'm fascinated by it. My Cabbage Patch doll's name was Myrna.
Myrna. I know a real life person named Myrna.
Really? Is she elderly?
Getting there.
Okay. Sorry,
we're all getting there. We're all getting there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I just think it's great. That's the kind of stuff that I like to watch. Yeah. Anything about old toys to me is fascinating.
True. Okay, so we covered Dream Killer. If you were going to suggest one of your other documentaries for us to cover for our show, anything you think we should hit next?
I would say do I've always thought Brett Morgan is kind of an interesting director. And he did this movie called June 17th, 1994. It was an ESPN 30 for 30. And it plays with it plays with the form a little bit and is just innovative in terms of approach. So that would be my big suggestion.
I wrote it down, so I'm going to check that one out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So we have a little tradition, and if you're down, I'm going to ask if you'd be interested in playing a short game with us before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay. I put together a few trivia questions about true crime and other relevant things. Are you interested in playing a couple trivia questions? Lauren doesn't know any of this either.
No, I don't.
No, I'm interested. No, but am I a team player and always down? Of course.
I love the honesty.
Because I suck at trivia. I forget things. I need my notes. Yep. This is going to be a disaster.
It's fine. I'll try to.
There's no
hold the team here.
There may be. You may have a better chance at this than you think. We'll see. All right. So here we go. Number one, according to the Innocence Project, in an article from April in 2023, how many wrongly convicted people have been exonerated based on DNA tests that demonstrated their innocence since 1989? And I'll give you some options. All right. Okay. So the question is, since 1989, how many people have been exonerated based on DNA?
Okay.
Is it A, 186 people?
Okay.
B, 575 people? C, 621 people? Or D, 1,386 people? This is a guess, obviously, unless you read the stat.
I want to go with the 600 one.
You say C, 620.
Well, can you quickly run through those three options?
168, 575, 621, or 1,386.
Whatever the lowest number is.
You think it's low?
You think it's 186?
Yeah, let's do that. I thought it was. Let's do that. You said this is the number of people that were
exonerated.
That were sentenced to be killed but exonerated via DNA?
Not necessarily sentenced to be killed. They were wrongly convicted and then exonerated based on DNA.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I told you I was bad at this game.
You're good.
You're good. I'm still going to stick with my 600 answer, 621.
Do you have a guess, Andrew?
I actually agree. Let's go with 621. Okay.
It's actually 575. As of
no, we were actually. I mean, we weren't like a joke. It wasn't laughable.
Yeah, you weren't like.
Yeah.
No, that's great. All right, question number 2. What famous 1989 case highlighted the issue of false confessions and led to several wrongful convictions in New York? So what famous 1989 case highlighted the issue of false confessions and led to several wrongful convictions in New York? Hint, we did a documentary episode.
Oh, this has got to be
case.
the
Central Park.
Yeah, the Central Park 5 jogger case. Okay, here's another one. Attorney Kathleen Zellner gained widespread recognition for her work on the post-conviction defense of which high-profile case involving a Manitowoc County man convicted of murder.
Yeah, Stephen Avery.
Making a Murderer too, baby.
Yeah.
Yep. Making a Murderer, Stephen Avery is correct. See, I told you you'd do better at this than you thought. Okay. What legal mechanism is a request filed by a person who is imprisoned, challenging the lawfulness of their detention or imprisonment? In Latin, it means, quote, "you shall have the body," indicating the court's power to order the release of an individual from unlawful detention. I've got some options if you want.
Yes, please.
So basically, what legal jargon is a request filed for a person challenging the lawfulness of their imprisonment?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is it A, caveat emptor?
Nah.
Is it B, in loco parentis? Is it C, habeas corpus?
Yes, that one.
Or is it D, quantum meruit?
It's the one that says corpse in it, because you said body.
Yep.
And that is on every body wash I've ever
Corpus,
seen.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Corpus Christi, Christie's body.
Yeah. Christie's body, you.
Okay, last one, and then we'll let you get on your way. All right?
Here we go.
Yeah, of course.
Which of these directors or actors is considered to be more handsome than Andrew Jenks, according to the same IMDb user list we talked about earlier? Okay, here's your 4 options. Which of these is considered to be more handsome? Arguably, but you know. Mm-hmm. Okay, is it A, Andrew Garfield? Is it B, Ashton Kutcher? Is it C, Brad Pitt? Or is it D, Casey Affleck? And I'll say, All 4 of those people were on the list, and only one of them is above Andrew Jenks, the mighty Jenk.
Okay, let's think here. I swear earlier when we were talking, you said out loud that he beat out Brad Pitt. So I don't think it's Brad. Jeez.
Yeah. Can you hear my cat, Andrew?
No, I can't.
Loud. So I'm going to say Ashton Kutcher.
Okay.
Just because I don't know who the other 2 people are.
Do you think Ashton Kutcher's more handsome than Andrew Jenks?
Absolutely not.
All right. Andrew, do you feel like guessing?
Oh, no, I'm not partaking in this. This is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous.
All right. I promise I'm almost done wasting your time here. All right. The answer is Andrew Garfield.
Who is that?
There we go, baby.
Spider-Man.
Oh, I thought he was a president.
Oh, well.
Like Andrew Jackson.
Or James Garfield.
Or James Garfield, no. Yes.
So you did beat out Ashton Kutcher, Brad Pitt, and Casey Affleck. So nicely done.
And I don't know who that other guy is, so it's fine.
Andrew Garfield?
Yeah, I don't have any idea.
Watch The Amazing Spider-Man.
No,
he's all right. But anyway. Okay, Andrew, it's been more than a pleasure talking to you, man. I'm so glad that you joined us for this episode.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me. It was fun to go down memory lane.
Yeah. Hopefully you had fun, and I will send you the IMDb list so that you can throw that out on your stuff and just tell. I think it was from like 2011 or something like that. So
yeah. Right.
So
there we go.
Anyway, man, I hope you had fun. I know we did. Thanks for putting.
Yes, I did. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Keep putting out good stuff, and we're looking forward to checking out another documentary of yours. Maybe if you're interested, we'll have you back for another episode. So.
Yeah, of course. Let me know.
Yeah, be well, man. To all of our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you keep your minds open and be kind. I almost forgot my own tagline. We hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. And until next time, thanks for listening to Talkumentary Insider. Thank you, Lauren, Sister Lauren.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye, guys.